The only way to start your day.
Appear as though Kenya's constitutional document, which is the passport, was then been given to others. We're going to go into the intrigues of this conversation and find out what exactly is going on here. Political historian Professor Macharia Munene is here with us this morning. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning to you. Nice to be here again.
Good to see you again. Karibu sana.
Asante.
So there's a lot of cobwebs perhaps we need to sweep out. But before we do that, Dennis is going to welcome you with today's proverb from Cameroon.
Our proverb from Cameroon says, if you marry a beautiful woman, you must build a high fence. How would you interpret it?
Be ready for anything. Because actually it goes with that saying that a beautiful woman, you are not the only one who saw the beauty. There are other people. And they might show interest.
Yes.
And you should be ready for it.
And protect it as well.
Indeed. Well, in Kenya today, of course, Kenya's geographical location and it being who it is invites a lot of regional guests. And this happened last year with the leader of the RSF coming and shaking hands, whereby a parallel government was going to be set up. And that announcement was then given in Nairobi. Of course, there was a lot of furor around that, and everybody said, what exactly is going on here in terms of diplomatic relations that had been established between Kenya and Sudan? Before that, how do you then come and set up a parallel government? And then, the fire kind of quietened down around that until this month, where the US raised the red flag and said, we are interested in this fellow. And then we've come to see that he's got a Kenyan document. And then now that fire has been stoked. Give us an overview of what could possibly be going on here, Prof.
It's an indictment on Kenya. Not so much on Sudan or the RSF. The RSF was just looking for opportunity to advance their cause. And the weakest link they could find, or the best link they could find, happens to be Kenya. And so they seem to be doing very well on their part. But Kenya is not doing well.
How so?
In the sense that the image that comes up, as a country we profess we don't interfere in other people's affairs. And we do not encourage rebellion and uprisings, given that in its past Kenya has experienced some of those things. And you do not want somebody else fomenting that kind of behavior on your country. So should you be doing it or be seen to be doing it in another country? So the problem of Sudan is big. Of course, Kenya has had a role in the Sudan before. It was responsible for the independence of South Sudan. And but the government in Khartoum did not take that badly in those days. In fact, we negotiated with it to the extent of inviting Bashir for some tea here so that he can feel good. But this is different in the sense that whereas the SPLA was seen to be fighting for self-determination in an environment of multiple colonialism, because when independence in 1956 for Sudan was seen to be independence for the Arab part, and the southern part said, no, we are not part of it. So it was kind of agreed. The question was how to get rid of it, to stop the chaos. In this one, it's totally different. You have two people who are allies. This one, they were beating up people in Darfur. They were appointed by Bashir. They are Bashir's people. And when he was in trouble, they organized to tell him to step aside from what I hear is that they just put him across the river in Omdurman in a nice house near the hospital. And as long as he doesn't interfere, they leave him there. Then they turn on each other. So there is that big difference. It's not a really serious issue of self-determination or anything. It's just greed. Then to make matters worse, the external interference apart from Kenya, particularly the United Arab Emirates, and others were interested in the minerals. And the paradox of it is that Kenya appears to be very close to the United Arab Emirates.
Yep.
To the extent that they give us aeroplanes to fly in.
To go places.
To go to places. And the leader of this rebel movement also enjoys the same facility. So we raise a question, what is the United Arab Emirates' role in this particular episode? Because it's not accidental. And the person who has been flagged is the brother to the rebel leader, Ahmedi. It's not a coincidence. And looking at it, looks as if he got his Kenyan passport about a year or two ago, which is now using now. They say, hey, well, how come you have about 2 or 3 passports? Depends on convenience. And where it came from Nairobi. Oh, okay. How is that? So there are a few people who may have to answer questions. If it's 2 years ago, then Kindiki may have to explain.
Because under what circumstances would he then get a passport if we already know that according to Kenyan immigration law, the circumstances under which you can get a passport are by naturalization, by marriage, or obviously by birth.
Yes.
So under what circumstances would he have gotten one?
That's why Kindiki has to answer questions. And the chief immigration officer, director, because it is abnormal. Procedures were not followed. This person is not a Kenyan by birth. He is not a Kenyan by naturalization. He may have lived in Kenya, we don't know, but he is not known to have done it. He is known to be efficient in procurement, strange procurement, and organizing logistical support for his group. So he ordinarily does not qualify
for a Kenyan passport.
For a Kenyan passport or Kenyan ID or Kenyan anything.
So, Prof, I look at it this way. Looking back historically, you look at the fall of Somalia in the 90s. It led to a bit of infiltration of the Somali citizens into Kenya, and the then immigration office was compromised, and they got a lot of passports. They got to travel to the UK and to US and wherever else. Then the UK flagged some persons of Somali origin who had Kenyan passport, which led even to us now requiring a visa to go to the UK. So there were those consequences for the innocent Kenyans from the mere fact of the immigration being compromised. Fast forward to today, what could this flagging of this single passport mean to other Kenyan passport holders internationally when you look at the international relations? Because the passport is a travel document for us to, globetrot, if I may say.
Well, it means that Kenyans, wherever they go, will need to be ready for harassment. Because some immigration officer somewhere will look at it again. Are you really Kenyan? Do you have another passport? Something like that. I should be ready for that. That's where the problem goes back to Kenyan officials who did it knowingly because it was not an accident. But they had not thought of the consequences of their action. And as you point out, there was time when you could go to England with your passport and you just go and go do what you're doing and then come back. But now you are harassed to even get a visa before you get it. It's unfortunate. So this sort of thing is likely to affect Kenya, not just in the United States, which is the one that said here it is. But other countries are also going to be suspicious that you have a passport. How do we know it is genuine, although it looks genuine? And then they cross-check other documents to see whether you appear somewhere else. So that is likely to happen, but we hope it doesn't. But it's the short-sightedness of policymakers who do this sort of thing. Now, if the person had claimed to be a refugee and then you give them a refugee status, and then give them some travel document. That's another matter.
Yes.
But this is not what it was.
No.
Yes.
And we have stories about people who are genuine refugees not getting that sort of help in the place. So the episode for Kenya is negative.
So it requires you, in our Kenyan immigration system today, to get a Kenyan passport. You need to have an e-citizen account. You must have a birth certificate. You
Your
must have an
parents.
ID.
Yes.
And your parents' details as well.
And your parents' details.
Assuming they are there.
Assuming. So how far does this stretch?
It is back to the policymakers who do not believe in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Because that behavior is by people who do not believe in the Constitution, and it's questionable whether they know Kenya's national interests that need to be protected.
Yeah.
And if they do not know, then they are not likely to take into consideration the consequences of bad decisions. Of course, there was an assumption that it would never be found out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was. It was like the other bad thing that had been tried, the Adani thing. And people complained about Adani. This is improper. It's against national interest. How do you give away your national asset to a foreign entity where you have no control of any kind? And the response from the officialdom was, "What are you going to do anyway?"
Yeah.
Until somebody in the US
Flagged it again.
flagged it and said, "This guy is a crook." So you keep on waiting for some other people to tell you what you know.
What you know.
And so officially we are told that the Adani deal had been sidelined for now.
Yes.
It's not that they didn't know what they were doing. But when that happens, you raise questions. Do our policymakers know what they're doing?
Yep.
And if they know, then they don't have Kenya's interest.
Yeah, Prof, I look at it from, we personally expect to be harassed because of the mess that has happened. Every other Kenyan should get ready for that. If it doesn't happen, God is great.
Yeah.
But I look at it from a point where Kenya has been known to be a major player in diplomatic circles. You talk about peace in Somalia and what Kenya has done with regard to trying to assist Somalia. You talk about the peace that was brokered in South Sudan. Kenya has also been involved in matters to do with the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kenya has been to Haiti. You talk about Sierra Leone. Kenya has played its role. It had been regarded as a safe haven for anyone who would want to get in. Kenya hosts quite a huge number of refugees in the country. But with what is happening in the country, how does this dent Kenya's diplomatic position in the world?
Well, right now it's not very good. Yes, there were those times when Kenya was the place to be. It still is the place to be given our neighborhood.
Yes.
But there was a time when the reputation was high up. And it was not expected that Kenya would be involved in shady deals. That was not expected.
Yeah.
What we have now is the hyping of shadiness as opposed to the good side there. Yes, those days that we brokered, because we did.
Yeah.
We created a government in Somalia, and then the government turned against us after we created. So that sort of thing. Sudan, we created Sudan, helped them, and then kind of abandoned, and the other people took over.
Yeah.
And so sort of this. But this is slightly different. Because in those times, there were no allegations that you are doing shady things.
Yes.
But now we have been accused even of ferrying what?
Weapons.
Armaments?
Yes.
Yep.
Kenyan armaments to those rebels. Of course we have denied it, but the message is there. And then you get linked to this fellow who is known to be a supplier of arms. So it's not a good image. Yes, we went to Haiti. It's doubtful whether it was for the best of reasons.
Yes.
And of course, we got rewarded with a dinner at the White House for doing that. And
As you should.
but nothing else.
Yeah.
Outside the State House, there were a lot of questions. And even the way the whole thing was administered was questionable. Was the money that was spent properly in the whole thing? The US had supposedly committed to pay for almost everything. And then at one time we were told that the Parliament should approve money to... So you said, then what the hell is going on? What happened to the money that you were told? There are a lot of question marks. Even bills in Kenya associated with the Haiti thing were not paid. That we know for a fact. So a lot of question marks comes in. And we don't look very good, very unfortunate. And then to be ranked, those people who do the ranking about corruption, and then you are either number 2 or number 1 or number 3.
You're topping the list.
So those are not things that one should be associated with. As a country, we are located in a very nice place. Right at the equator, everything operates around the equator. And the East Coast, the Indian Ocean, the gateway, a vibrant economy when it's allowed to be vibrant. Because right now there is question whether it is allowed to be vibrant. Then other people see this is a place to be, and which is very good, until you start messing it up.
Sure. Yeah. And even with all of that, we cannot run away from Kenya's unique geographical location, which still continues to be a desirable point for certain nations. Now, by the time the U.S. was flagging Dalgalo's behavior for whatever it is that they did, it had something to do directly with them. Kenya's involvement in giving him this document came up as a result of that search for them to find out, okay, what's really going on with this fella. But Kenya still remains a darling of a lot of these nations because, again, its geographical location and what it's been able to maintain in the region for, the longest time. Kenya, obviously, being a broker when it came to conflict in Somalia and Somaliland and South Sudan and Sudan. I mean, so that still remains the case. Would we see that this action really would degrade Kenya's darling status with the US because of this action?
Well, it raises a lot of questions of trust. Whom are you dealing with? And what's the issue to be looked at? Well, the US is deeply involved in Kenya in many ways. They are expanding the Manda Bay Airport for their big jets to come in and go and bomb some place in South or something like that. And so they do have that particular interest. But when it comes to administrative issues, if they are not interested, if they are not for RSF, and then you are part of that, then you are fighting. So which side are you when? But there are a lot of theories, because when countries deal with each other, they express some duplicity, one from one another.
Yes.
And we know that the Americans, they are not always very good and very straight in some things. So you understand each other, what are you doing here? This sort of thing. And it is not that the Americans are surprised that we are dealing with the RSF. They're not. Because they know. After all, if you are getting travel jets from Dubai, Hamedi is also getting the same jet.
Yeah.
This is not secret. So there is that deep connection. The question is how it affects their interest. And in this case, this guy called Augoni, something like that, and maybe he was trying to get into some American thing, and they say, wait a minute, this guy
We know him.
We know him. He's not. He's not. It may not affect very big things, but it does affect Kenyans as a people.
Yes.
Because suspicion is very high. We are fortunate as a country in the sense that our neighbors are doing worse than we are.
Well, what a comparative proof. But I would want to look at it this way. Our international policy highly influences the stability of our local intricacies or running of our government, because it will influence whether we can attract investors. It will interest whether people have faith and confidence in the existing regime. But when I look at our recent incidences, we had the Minnesota incidents. The same US flagged peoples of Somali origin to be doing money laundering here in Kenya, or proceeds of corruption from the US. A few months ago, or perhaps a year, we had the arrest of Besige happening here in Kenya. Ugandans are not very happy with us. A few months before then, we had the issue of the DRC Congo, us coming out as partisan and interfering. So, and the list goes on and on and on. Now we have the issue of Sudan. I'm sure Ethiopia would have something to say about us. The tea issue, they're not buying our tea anymore. So, I think that was Sudan.
Yes.
But there are many issues you could pick and see that our international relation, our international image is getting dented by the day. And what repercussions then, economically speaking, and also geopolitically in terms of standing, are we going to contend with if this trend was to continue, whereby now Kenya is no longer the hub of Africa as it were in the past?
Yeah, well, likely to deteriorate as a hub in Africa. It still is the hub in Eastern Africa, although there was a time when Ethiopia was threatening before they went back to being second players. The image of being a very corrupt place, that you cannot get anything straight, does not attract investment. And we've noticed that manufacturing in Kenya has been going down, not going up. And therefore, you are not creating jobs. And if you are not creating jobs, we pride ourselves that you are exporting jobs to some place, that some of them don't turn out to be very good. Some people die in some foreign wars. The policy is the problem. And it's the problem because the people making policy do not seem to know what they're doing. So there are no investors investing now because of bad policy. And when they say that before you can be given licenses, you have to incorporate somebody in your company for it to be licensed. Then some people say, no, we don't want to do that. And sometimes it makes the country look as if it's very easy to manipulate. If the story about Bill Gates was correct, it reflected very poorly on Kenya. And it's not one story, there are many. So Kenya is not doing well. And the economic benefits are not likely to be accrued soon. Instead, in fact, Kenya is getting worse in terms of economic performance. Although comparatively, it's better than the neighborhood. But things are not
getting better.
If our companies are moving out to other countries, they go to Rwanda or some other place, those are jobs exported to Rwanda and other places. So, and we pride ourselves, that is the elite, in importing things, such that we even import toothpicks, which is ridiculous. So, and that comes to the approach. The economic advisors, or if they are listened to, and sometimes we like to talk about China. And if you think carefully, how did the Chinese do it? They concentrated on the domestic market. You supply everything you need within the country. And then the surplus you give to other people. We may need to borrow that model. Whatever it is that's needed in Kenya, you make sure that you supply it here.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous for the country to be importing maize when there's a lot of it in Kitale.
Yes.
But we do, eh?
Yes.
Largely, yes.
Ridiculous to be importing sugar.
From Uganda.
From Uganda. There's nothing wrong with trade, but you should be able to produce your own sugar.
Yes.
And the excess, the one you don't have, you import that. But now we import sugar even when we have it. And rice. So there is a policy disorientation, you can say that. And it appears to be a recent phenomenon, which is very disturbing. The parastatals, now we are told that they should be sold. Although some people say no, the parastatals in themselves are not the ones that are being sold. It's the land which is being desired. Because with the parastatal, this parastatal, the company itself is almost a shell.
Yes.
But the amount of land they have
It's huge.
will come with it. So very nefarious reasoning. But getting rid of the national assets goes against the original intent of why were they created. Back at the time of independence, the people of Kenya in general had not saved money or capital to invest. So ideally, these parastatals were to help generate savings for investment, for development.
So Professor One then asks the question, if you look at where Kenya finds itself today, how do we fix it? And what is the role of president in all this? Why do I ask that? Because the president is the consumer of intelligence, raw intelligence, he gets it. So something to deal with Hemiti and the brother getting... that is high level. The president, as a consumer of raw intelligence, these are things he knows. What's his role in terms of stopping all this and fixing it, and can he?
Well, he has a major role, critical role, and that's where the problem is in the first place. The people in intelligence, their job is simply to collect, analyze it, and give it to somebody. Then it's up to that somebody to make the decision based on the intelligence that's of benefit to the country. The question that comes up is whether the people making the decisions, they get all this information and they know. But do they have the right approach, attitude? Do they know what they're doing? Do they have the same values as the rest of them? Like we can talk about what national interest and what we think they are. We can talk about the Constitution and what we think it says and should be guarding. That's okay. But does the president and the people around him believe the same thing? Because if for some reason they have a different approach, then their responses will be different from what some people expect. In fact, that is a serious problem for the people in intelligence.
What would RSF, for example, and Kenya be doing together? There was a clear handshake between the president and the RSF leader last year. To set up a parallel government, and Nairobi was going to be the center for that. Why? I mean, it's not like...
That's why it goes back to the
relationship?
president. What does the president believe? And, why is he doing this? Because it's him. It's not. There's no need of saying that the Minister for Foreign Affairs or Defense or some other affair. It's the president who makes this decision. And the question is, why is he doing that? Knowing very well that this RSF are this type of people. Or so and so is this and this. And the accusations that have been made about the genocide they conducted in Darfur or some other place. And the accusations about shipping of gold to some place. sometimes said it passes through Nairobi. Now, if this is happening, why is he permitting that? And that goes back to his attitude. What does he believe in?
Yes.
Does he believe in what the rest of Kenyans think should be the case? So what is his relationship with the United Arab Emirates, which seems to have a lot of influence in Eastern Africa, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, and in Kenya? And what is the agenda of Dubai? We keep on hearing about our elite going to Dubai for whatever it is, even medical checkup.
Yeah.
Right.
And some of them have been bought flats or mansions in Dubai. And you wonder why. So are they likely to be looking after Kenya's interest or Dubai's interest? Dubai is supposedly involved in what is termed as port imperialism.
Yes.
They take control of your ports, whether the airports or the seaports.
Yeah.
And therefore you lose your freedom, your autonomy, and your ability to run your own country because they are the ones doing it. And their decisions are not necessarily in the interest of the country. So why would the president be involved in this kind of thing? And you remember even the Adani thing had the Dubai connection.
Yes, it is.
So why is this thing? And it is the president who should actually be answering some of these questions. Because in theory, the Minister of Foreign Affairs informs him. In theory, the defense does its job because they do have defense intelligence.
Yes.
And the NIS, which is fairly well funded, they even have a new university.
Yes.
And let's say our intelligence is not bad. You know, whatever the problem, it's not bad. Given that in 1998, our intelligence informed the Americans that there will be this thing is going to happen. The Americans ignored. They regretted it after. So we are not bad. But so the problem is not the intelligence. It is the consumers of intelligence. And that's why we should be asking what's going on. And so I think it's fair to ask the president, why is this thing happening? Yes.
Now, as Kenyans, then, because at the end of the day, you know, we are a nation of rule of law, or supposed to be. And then we see this affront on our constitution, because clearly this is an affront on even our sovereignty, because you've taken a foreigner and made them a Kenyan. You're even giving them sovereign powers, because when they go there, they deserve Kenyan protection, like any other citizen who travels. So there are a lot of powers that we are yielding to foreigners, which is an affront of our sovereignty. That's how I see it in our constitution. So as Kenyans, then, as we question the president why this is happening and many other issues we have discussed regarding our neighboring countries, even the issue of Russia, you know, because those are still Kenyans. We also may want to know whether they are original Kenyans by the virtue of the documents they hold. Many questions come into play. But as Kenyans, then, what should we expect in a democracy that we pride to be? What should happen? Maybe at the ministry level, at the executive level, at the immigration office. What should happen?
I think this is where the parliament is failing us. Ideally, the parliament should be at the forefront of asking questions of the ministers, of the officials, and of the president as people's representatives, whose role is to represent and to oversight and to ask questions. And unfortunately, they don't do that. Instead, we are told that they get envelopes in the toilet. Then they even don't read the documents. So what can the people do in the country? They can ask questions and not stop asking questions, just ask hard questions. Like your program here, Spice. I think even airing this thing is part of the action.
Yes.
People should be aware that something wrong is happening. And it's not happening because people at the top are ignorant. If they are ignorant, you educate them. But this does not appear to be the case.
Yeah.
So the public can be raising questions. Why are you compromising our sovereignty? Which means why are you compromising each one of us? Because when you go and get harassed outside there because of something that you had nothing to do with, but then you should be asking questions. Why are you doing this thing? And if answers are not forthcoming, then you ask more. And it should not be a one person doing it. It should be collective, almost everywhere. And this is where we blame the Parliament for failing to protect Kenya's interests. Because the protection is not simply the police and the military or foreign affairs. It's anyone in position of responsibility should know what is expected. And right now, members of Parliament are failing us, and they can do it in different ways.
With the importance of speaking up and having conversations like this, because you can't operate in a vacuum, neither can you say, well, we've got our own internal things to figure out, because it's very clear that external activity affects what happens inside. That we have these conversations, and it's important for us to be aware of the happenings around. This is one to watch. It'll be interesting to see what happens thereafter, if there will be an answer given as to what happened, and if we're going to continue to see the activation of this relationship between RSF, not Sudan, between RSF and Kenya. But thank you, Professor Macharia Munene, for being here this morning to open the lid on some of these things. And we continue to push these and have these conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Conversations continue, folks, at 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. We'll be back after this. Don't go away.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.